The shadow of war looms large as Israel strikes Iran following an ominous warning. The world watches with bated breath as the situation unfolds. Tensions between Israel and Iran have reached a fever pitch, with both nations on high alert. The streets are filled with protesters and the air is thick with uncertainty and fear. In a dramatic turn of events, Israel has launched a series of airstrikes against Iranian targets. The skies are filled with the roar of fighter jets and explosions light up the night. This aggressive move follows a stern warning message sent by Israel to Iran, a message that hinted at severe consequences if certain actions were not ceased. The details of this message remain undisclosed, shrouded in secrecy. However, its very existence underscores the gravity of the situation and the high stakes involved. Military analysts are now dissecting every move, every statement, trying to predict the next steps. The concerned faces in control rooms reflect the anxiety felt worldwide. The strikes mark a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict between the two nations, a conflict that has simmered for years and now threatens to boil over. The international community is watching with bated breath as global leaders scramble to respond. The United Nations is calling for restraint, but the situation remains volatile. The potential for a wider conflict is very real, with military forces on standby and diplomatic channels buzzing with activity. The world holds its breath, hoping for a peaceful resolution. The strikes are a stark reminder of the volatility of the Middle East, a region that has seen more than its share of conflict and turmoil. The echoes of past conflicts resonate as new ones threaten to emerge. They also highlight the global implications of regional conflicts, as the actions of one nation can ripple across the world, affecting global security and stability. The world watches, waits, and hopes for peace amidst the chaos. A history of hostility roots of the Israeli-Iranian conflict. This conflict is not just a recent phenomenon, but has deep historical roots that have shaped the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East for decades. The roots of the Israeli-Iranian conflict run deep, tracing back to the mid-20th century when both nations were undergoing significant transformations. They are a tangled web of religious, ideological, and geopolitical differences. These differences have only grown more pronounced over the years, fueled by a series of events that have left both nations on opposing sides of many critical issues. The 1979 Iranian Revolution marked a turning point. This revolution not only changed the political landscape of Iran, but also had far-reaching implications for its foreign policy, particularly towards Israel. Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, called for the destruction of Israel. His rhetoric was not just inflammatory but also set the stage for decades of animosity. He deemed it an illegitimate state, a sentiment that has been echoed by many Iranian leaders since then. This ideological stance has been a cornerstone of Iran's foreign policy. Israel views Iran as an existential threat. This perception is not unfounded given Iran's aggressive posturing and its support for groups that are hostile to Israel. This is primarily due to Iran's nuclear ambitions and its support for militant groups like Hezbollah. These groups have been involved in numerous attacks against Israeli targets, further heightening tensions. Iran, in turn, accuses Israel of being a destabilizing force in the region. Iranian leaders often point to Israel's military actions and its alliances with Western powers as evidence of its destabilizing influence. It points to Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. This occupation has been a major point of contention, not just for Iran, but for many countries in the Middle East. The relationship between the two countries has been marked by proxy wars, assassinations, and cyber attacks. These covert operations have only added fuel to the fire, making any form of reconciliation seem increasingly unlikely. The recent airstrikes are a dangerous escalation in this long-standing feud. These airstrikes not only risk further destabilizing the region but also bring the two nations perilously close to open conflict. The stakes are high and the path to peace remains fraught with challenges. A stark warning, Israel's message before unleashing its might. Prior to the strikes, Israel reportedly sent a communication to Iran. The content of this message remains shrouded in secrecy. However, sources suggest that it served as a warning. Israel likely outlined actions Iran could take to avoid military action. This preemptive communication underscores the gravity of the situation. It suggests that Israel was prepared to use force, but also sought to prevent further escalation. The fact that the message did not avert the strikes is telling. It indicates the deep mistrust and seemingly insurmountable differences between the two nations. The Israeli Prime Minister addressed the nation. emphasizing the necessity of the strikes. Meanwhile, Iranian officials condemned the actions, calling them acts of aggression. The international community reacted with a mix of condemnation and calls for restraint. The United Nations urged both nations to return to the negotiating table. This incident is the latest in a long history of tensions between Israel and Iran. Experts believe that the underlying issues are complex and deeply rooted. Citizens on both sides have expressed a desire for peace, despite the ongoing conflict. Humanitarian organizations are working tirelessly to provide aid to those affected. The hope remains that future generations will see an end to this cycle of violence. As the world watches, the message is clear. The path to peace is fraught with challenges, but it is a journey worth undertaking. The Fury Unleashed, details of Israel's retaliatory strike. Israel launched airstrikes targeting multiple locations within Iran. The strikes were precise and deliberate. They focused on military installations and infrastructure linked to Iran's ballistic missile program. Reports suggest that facilities used by Iranian-backed militias in Syria were also targeted. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, confirmed the strikes. They stated that the operation was a response to an imminent threat posed by Iran. The IDF emphasized its right to defend Israeli citizens from aggression. The aftermath, assessing the damage and potential for escalation. The full extent of the damage inflicted by the Israeli strikes remains unclear. Iranian state media downplayed the impact. However, reports from independent sources suggest significant damage to key military infrastructure. The strikes represent a bold and risky move by Israel. They carry the potential for significant escalation. Iran has vowed a crushing response. The possibility of retaliatory strikes against Israeli interests both domestically and abroad is very real. The American stance, a delicate balancing act for the United States. The United States finds itself in a precarious position. It is a staunch ally of Israel, but also seeks to avoid a wider conflict in the region. The U.S. government has acknowledged that it was informed by Israel prior to the strikes. However, the U.S. has emphasized that it was not directly involved in the operation. The Biden administration has called for restraint from both sides. It is urging a de-escalation of tensions and a return to dialogue. A chorus of concern. The international community reacts. The international community has expressed deep concern over the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting. Several countries have called for restraint and dialogue. They fear that a wider conflict would have devastating consequences for the entire region. Echoes of war statements from Tehran and Tel Aviv. The rhetoric from both Iran and Israel remains heated. Iranian officials have condemned the Israeli strikes as an act of state terrorism. They vow to respond decisively at a time and place of their choosing. Israeli leaders in turn have defended their actions as necessary for self-defense. They accuse Iran of continuing to threaten Israel's security through its nuclear program and support for terrorism. On the brink. Potential scenarios and global implications. The current situation is fraught with danger. The potential for miscalculation and further escalation is high. One possible scenario is a tit-for-tat exchange of attacks. This could quickly spiral into a wider regional conflict. Another possibility is that Iran chooses to respond asymmetrically. This could involve cyber attacks. This could involve terrorist attacks. This could involve attacks on shipping in the Persian Gulf. Such actions could have a significant impact on global energy markets. A world on edge. Navigating the uncertain future. The world watches with bated breath as tensions between Israel and Iran continue to escalate. The recent Israeli airstrikes are a stark reminder of the volatility of the Middle East. They also highlight the global implications of regional conflicts. The coming days and weeks will be critical. The actions of both Israel and Iran, as well as the international community's response, will determine whether this conflict escalates further or if a path towards de-escalation can be found. The price of conflict. A call for peace in a volatile world. The latest chapter in the Israeli-Iranian conflict is a stark reminder of the human cost of war. Innocent lives are at risk. The potential for widespread destruction is very real. The world needs diplomacy, not more violence. The international community must work together to find a peaceful resolution to this conflict. The alternative is too terrible to contemplate.